Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors Advanced Self-Publishing Salon with me, Joanna Penn, and Orna Ross. Hi, Orna.
Hi, Joanna. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We are here, and today we are talking about literary prizes and awards and how they relate to indie authors. And this is a really fascinating topic, and we will be getting into it soon. But before we do, remember, we are writers as well. That's what we do. So let's just give a little update. So, Orna, what's going on with Ally?
Yes, we are writers and publishers, and there is also the Alliance of Independent Authors, and lots going on as ever. We are running some webinars with Apple Books in the near future. So we're just kind of organizing that. Michael Laurent, is our outreach manager, is setting them up, and we will be sending information out to our members about them shortly. We'll run two to start with. We'll keep them going depending on demand. About 50 people allowed into each webinar, and we'll do one kind of southern hemisphere, one northern hemisphere to start, and then we'll see if there's any more demand after that. And essentially they are sort of for people who are not that familiar with the platform, who want to know how to publish their books there and how to get books moving there. So it's all part of the go wide kind of focus and non-exclusivity focus that we're running now over the next few months. We have a big post about the ultimate guide to going wide on the blog today. So it's
Can I just say on that webinar, It's not just for new people. I went on one of those webinars about a month ago, and it will be the same webinar. And I got some tips, and also, it's the relationships with Apple you need. Because it's not public. So if you go on one of these webinars, you're going to get knowledge that none of us are allowed to share publicly. So as much as we would love to just tell you everything, that's not our information to tell you. But if you go on one of these webinars, Apple will tell you, and then you have the information. So please go on these webinars if you want to sell more on Apple. It is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, and as you said, it's the relationship is more important on platforms like Apple, which are curated by human beings.
Yep.
So actually getting to know the people who are there. And it's Ian Wallace who has done stuff with us before, but it has been a while since we've done one of these. Also, just for members who are listening, we do also have a PDF guide in the member zone for Apple and lots of other Kobo and lots of other services, Amazon too. So if you're looking for specific service guides, they are there. Just navigate to the services and then service guides, you'll find them. So that's going on, and we have our ambassador program. We are seeking ambassadors in new territories. So we have Michael now, who again is Michael's come in as outreach manager, and we've organized an organization membership for local and national organizations on the ground in different territories. And we're looking for members, longish term members who have been with us for a while, who understand the kind of ally way of doing things, to be a bit of a bridge between the indie community, us, and the local organizations, because we're going to be talking about prizes today as our topic. And this is one of the things that we were talking about when Ally was founded 10 years ago, was about literary prizes. Open up to indie authors, please. And we haven't on that particular thing. And lots of other things, we've made a lot of progress, but that's an example of something where we haven't. And I think we need to get together with the existing writers' organizations to help push some of these things through that are really taking far too long. So that is that. And the other thing we're looking for from you people is proposals for a self-pub-con, and we will have the link in the show notes for that, but it's selfpublishingadvice.org/selfpubcon. So we want your proposals on the theme of writing craft. So get those through to us if you have something exciting to share with people.
Fantastic. Right. Well, I'm in finishing energy kind of difficult times when you just seem to send off one email to somebody formatting one thing, and then there's another email coming from a beta reader, and then you have to upload this and upload. So it's finishing energy big time. How to Make a Living with Your Writing, the completely rewritten 3rd edition, will be out on the 15th of March. And I'm also narrating the audiobook and editing the audiobook and doing the paperback, large print, hardback, workbook. I mean, all the things. And I publish wide. So, you know, it's sort of a bit of energy that goes into this, but once it's all up on all the platforms, it's fine. But it is a lot of wrangling. I'm also doing a new book in German, so I'm wrangling beta readers for that using DeepL, the AI, for the first draft, and working with an editor, beta readers. And also I'm doing the Matt Walker trilogy box set in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. So I'm trying to do all these things in March. Oh, and I did write a short story. So what I'll tell you what's happened to me is I see the end in sight to being locked down. So I'm determined to finish all this stuff on my plate so I can get out in the world again and go for a really big walk. So that's why I feel like I'm working really hard in March with the hope that April we might be a bit more free. I might be completely wrong, but that's what I'm hoping. So what about you, Orna? What are you up to?
Yes, not quite as much as all of that. The administration there just makes me want to curl up and die. But yeah, lots of admin, because I'm too at the end of a lot of publishing projects. And there's just a huge amount of, I don't have a very administrative mind. And just getting the team together and getting all the ducks in a row. But yeah, and then on the other front, just back writing fiction in the mornings before the day takes off, and just laying down words really, and finding it slow. It's funny, having stepped away from fiction for quite a while, I'm finding it's a muscle. I need to kind of get fit again. So speeding up a bit now, but yeah. That's it really. Writing and publishing.
Yes,
Better writer, trying to be a better publisher. Same this month as every month. Yeah,
it is. But I think it is also cyclical. You know, I'm in this end of a cycle, finishing energy, and once that's done, I have on my wall, I wrote a list of 5 books that I want to do next, and I'm thinking about them and things, so I can see the creative energy ahead. And I think that's really important for people. The only way to be a successful indie author is to, as you know, you talk about the different hats, you know, the author, the publisher, the marketer, the business person. There's so many hats, but it's fun, but it is cyclical. So yeah.
Yes, it is. And
okay.
Yeah, do remember to finish before you start a new one. Don't have all the open projects. Do get through the finishing energy bit, because it can be really tempting. I'm not saying to you, because you're a great finisher, but a lot of us aren't great finishers, and it can be really tempting when that new project comes up and you're dying to write it, to say, okay, well, I'll kind of do the publishing on the side, and then it doesn't quite happen.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
There's always something more fun than uploading books. That's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Or moving commas about in the final proof. You know, is the proofreader right with this little fix here, or this
tiny comment? Anyway, let us move on to the topic of today, which is indie authors and literary prizes, awards, competitions, and all these things. So we're going to start with a definition. So I obviously been doing this a decade, but I was never in the publishing industry as such. And Orna, you were in the publishing, or you're still in, but you were, in the industry much more embedded way. And so how do you define awards versus prizes versus competitions?
Yeah, it's difficult to actually completely break them down, and people use them interchangeably all the time. And, there isn't a strict definition, but I guess a competition is the one that's easiest to define, in that you enter a competition always. And it's usually, a competition usually refers to something smaller. So, it might be for a book, but it could also be just for a short story, or it could be just for a poem or whatever. When you get to what they call literary prizes and awards, you're looking at things that you're receiving for more of a long-term career, and you may be nominated. If you have a publisher, you may be nominated by a publisher, and of course we are our own publishers, and therefore we nominate our books for awards, and a prize is something that you get for winning an award. So the award is the recognition, the kudos, and so on. And some awards are sufficient unto themselves, you know, just winning the award is the prize, if you like, but very often they come with actual prizes attached, financial, it may be, residencies, education, you know, it can be lots of different things. But when people talk about, you know, the Booker Prize, for example, it is an award, it is a prize, it is a competition, it's all three, and people will talk about it interchangeably, particularly prize and award. Very hard to separate those two out.
Okay, so let's face it, these are all gatekeepery type things, and I feel like the part of being an indie author is about sort of blasting through the gatekeepers and getting out there and doing it yourself. So why should we actually even care about these types of things? Because let's face it, most of them are judged by people in the publishing industry, most of whom are traditionally published or are traditional publishers or people in the literary community as such. So why are prizes important?
Well, you know, it is completely legitimate to not go there at all. And in many ways, book prizes, it's an invidious thing. You can't compare two different books really and say one is better than the other. And there are all sorts of controversies about awards and prizes and, you know, why they are not to be taken that seriously. So it is a perfectly legitimate position to take. Look, I just don't do that. I left all of that kind of submission and rejection thing behind when I went indie, and I don't go there. But there are lots of people, you know, you're right about the better known awards being still very much an establishment trade publishing sort of world. But of course, there are like gazillions now of awards on the indie side, and there's almost like two different types of awards. So there are some very good awards and prizes for independent publishing, but there are also some very bad ones. And then you've got this world of prizes which hasn't shifted very much at all. I mean, some of the traditional prizes have opened up to independent authors, but lots haven't. So why would you bother with them if they don't want to bother with you? One of the reasons why we were not seeing indies winning traditional awards is indies are not entering.
Or not allowed to enter even?
Well, in some cases, yes, but also in some that have opened, you know, we've had discussions with people and they have said, look, we're not getting the entries. And we have put out stuff, you know, before through our news columns and various things and not seen entries. So you've got both of those things going on. You've got indies being, you know, not included in because the rules specifically say it has to be published by somebody who isn't the author. But you also have a situation where it is open and indies don't enter. So there is that. And why would you enter? So why bother?
Yeah, well, sorry, from my perspective, I see, and I have entered, and I have been in, you know, a finalist for the ITW award. Although the indie authors really only enter the ebook original award, whereas you would never be able to enter the hardback, or you would, but you would never win because, you know, they have the slightly different things going on there. But in terms of a reader and the marketing angle, this is what I see. I see now, I shop on the Bram Stoker list, for example. I read horror and I love the Bram Stoker list. And I'm like, okay, and I just go and sample pretty much everything on the Bram Stoker finalists list, the short list. It's still massive. It's like 50 books and all kinds of things. And then also the I was thinking, what else do I shop on? Specifically for me, the Financial Times business books, their shortlist, I will often read all the books on their shortlist, and those are non-fiction, and the other ones are like the Stanford's Travel Awards, which is a bookshop sponsored award. So I was thinking, like, a reason is the marketing that comes along, even with being on a shortlist. Of course, you mentioned rejection. It's very hard to get, and we'll come to books that might get on things like that. But I do think that one of the reasons why it's worth it is the potential marketing.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, in some cases, a prize can be completely life-changing. The one Lionel Shriver wrote a lot about how winning the Women's Prize for fiction with We Need to Talk About Kevin, how that changed. She was completely flat broke. She'd been writing for 12 years or something. Nobody cared. Her books didn't go anywhere. She was going from one publisher to another because, you know, her books wouldn't sell, and then she couldn't get them to publish the second one. And then she wins this prize, and then there's a big movie, and, you know, everything is completely different. So that happens. And as you say, it can also, at a much more everyday level, give you a good marketing boost, though it very much depends on the prize. Only certain prizes have a discernible effect on sales. It also, from an indie author perspective, it can make you more likely to be selected for a featured deal on a site like BookBub, and BookBub has identified that definitely a book having won an award gets more click through and you know, just more engagement generally. So it's curation, isn't it? In a world where we're coming down with books, somebody, you know, a panel of people has said this is a good book. It's a mark of quality, and a lot of authors have an ambition to be an award-winning author. It's something
Me.
yeah, you and lots of other people too. And it's understandable. It's completely understandable. So yeah, there are lots of reasons why you would want to do it and reasons why you might not want to do it. And either position is completely legitimate.
Yeah, so, well, then let's just talk a little bit about why prizes might be controversial. So, for example, there, you even mentioned the word good, which in itself is a controversial word.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, look, and I think it was it, I can't remember, was it Emma McBride who wrote, I can't remember the name of the book, but wasn't it all one sentence, or it was very challenging?
A girl is a half-formed thing.
Yes,
it's very stream
challenging.
of consciousness. Yes, absolutely.
Let's call it challenging. And if people were like this, you know, and as you say, you win a prize because it's a challenging type of book, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people will say it's their favorite book ever. And so sometimes these prizes, I think, can be controversial. What are some other reasons why? I mean, well, okay, here's another one. The romance writers, there was a big thing about the Ritas, I think, the fact that a author of color, you know, the authors of color were kind of just not there and just weren't even seen, and often the judges are all of a certain type, and so a lot of people aren't necessarily heard, their voices aren't heard or appreciated because they come from another worldview or culture or perspective.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the things that prizes, in the same way that prizes are not embracing indies, they're not using the power and potential that they have to actually elevate authors from different backgrounds, different voices. And there's a lot of lip service to this, but it doesn't tend to happen that often. I mean, for the very first time, a woman of colour won the British Book Award last year. First time ever, you know, and the Women's Book Prize was born out of the fact that there were so few women on the major prize lists. That's where that, you know, why that prize, and I remember that prize coming about and how important that seemed to women writers at the time. So yeah, that's definitely one reason. And there are no standards for judging, you know, aesthetics, and we see that in self-publishing all the time. You know, what pleases one group of readers will not please another. And in fact, sometimes winning a prize can actually result in you getting a lot of bad reviews because it opens up to readers who wouldn't necessarily have found your books. And then if somebody has said it's a great book and written a whole load of stuff, then you get a lot of reviews saying, you know, don't believe the hype kind of thing. This isn't any good. Because again, it you know, there is no absolute standard here, and there shouldn't be, and there wouldn't be. So yeah, I mean, there's that whole aspect. And then of course, as indies, we need to be aware of the fact that lots of awards and prizes that are directed towards us are completely useless. They're just a money-making scheme for somebody. They are not in any way. And, you know, an independent author gets an email saying, you know, we've read your book and it's fabulous, and, you know, we want to enter it for such and such an award, and the fee is such and such. And a lot of indies are pulled in by this. Finally, somebody's recognized my book, and again, completely understandable. They can seem extremely legitimate. They'll have set up a nice website, and it's all there. So we do actually have a page you can go to and look and see if you do get one of those letters out of the blue. Look and see if it is an actual legitimate award, or whether it's just somebody who's got a good money-making scheme going on. So yeah, that's self-publishingadvice.org. Author awards, contest, rated, reviewed.
Easy URL in the show notes.
Yes.
But I think that's really important. And also I think that if you're in a genre, so for example, I enter the thriller awards, and I want to also enter the Bram Stoker within horror. I'm a member of the Horror Writers Association. I'm a member of the ITW. They are my genre organizations, and thus I know and understand the competitions. I trust them. Neither of them are pay to enter, and they are usually peer judged they are peer judged by other authors. So to me, that's actually recognition I crave, is that, rather than, for example, I've been looking at short story awards. That's what I'm looking at right now. So for example, Bath has a very famous Bath Short Story Award. And yes, I happen to live here, but also the Bath Short Story Award is a well-known short story competition. And the Bridport, for example, again, another one. And you if you spend more than 5 minutes Googling the people who might have won and have a look at the websites and really just go a little bit further. I mean, yes, the Alliance has a list, but it doesn't have everything on it, especially like the short stories, for example. I went and had a look, and they're not everything is on that list. So you have to do your research into things, but you can also do it the other way around. So for example, I decided that I had this idea for a short story, and I'm like, I want to put it in a competition instead of what I would normally do, which is just self-publish it. I'm going to give it a go and enter a competition. So then I went looking for a short story list of short story competitions, and then I looked at the criteria and looked at the ones and the dates. And so I think that one tip is just to spend a bit more time identifying things. If that is one of your goals, think about it in a much more structured manner than, like you say, if you get an email out of the blue, that is not gonna, none of these prestigious or good competitions are going to be emailing you asking for this. But I would say the Bath Short Story Award does cost to enter. It's only about £12 though.
Yeah, and cost is not necessarily a measure,
Yes, this is important.
Yes, it's not about how much it costs, or that doesn't really tell you anything. You need to know more. I would like to give a shout out to an Ally Partner member, Book Award Pro. .com. So run by the lovely Hannah, and it is a service which will actually nominate, do all the administrative work for you for a monthly fee. And if you're serious about wanting to win a competition, then you're going to have to submit for more than one, and you do have to get kind of consistent about it. And so either you're going to work yourself doing the admin with an admin assistant or whatever, but Book Award Pro, they're very clued in to closing dates and what's coming up when and what kind of book suits what award, and they've got a lot of expertise, and they are also respected by a lot of the indie awards. So if you're thinking about taking it seriously, definitely take a look at them. But cost, we have a lot of authors who would say, and it costs such and such an amount of money, so it must be a scam. But actually, some of the biggest awards, I mean, if you are nominated for the Booker, you have to commit to spending £5,000.
It's more than that. It's more than that. I've looked recently. If you are you have to commit as a publisher that I think it's 10,000, even if you're in the shortlist. So while you don't have to pay to enter, you have to pay if you're shortlisted, and then you have to pay more if you're longlisted. So obviously you get the benefit of the potential sales off the back. But I think that's really important, the fact that the big biggest prizes, the most prestigious, you still have to basically pay to be part of, in the same way that, you know, you have to pay to be on the W.H. Smith bestseller list or on the front table at Barnes and Noble or whatever, or, you know, all of these things. So as you said, the money, it's not so much the money, it's the,
it's lots of other things, and you will
Yes.
you will have to look and check it all out. And we do, again, on the show notes, we'll have a couple of links to some good lists that have plenty of awards to keep you going for lots of time.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what prizes are open to indies? Anything significant that you think is worth mentioning there?
I think the Polari Prize is definitely worth mentioning for a first book. I think also you were talking about the fact, you know, that indie having changed things a little bit. Another award that didn't exist pre-digital is the Goodreads Reader's Choice. You've also got that kind of crowdsourced award, and indies, it's interesting that indies show up there quite a bit, you know, because it's the readers again. It isn't the establishment. So I think that is good. I mean, an independent author did win the Booker Prize. Did get on the shortlist, didn't win it outright, but was on the shortlist many moons ago. She just kind of decided to do it. She died recently, actually. Jill Patton Walsh was her name. But it's very possible to do it if you make it, if you really want to do it. I think a lot of prizes, one of the reasons I say indies can't apply is they don't want a deluge, that they simply don't have the ability to kind of turn it around. If they get a submission that fits the award, because that's the other thing as well, awards are very, very genre based, and these literary awards are very often for literary fiction, which is, and not just literary fiction, a very specific, it's just like it's a specific kind of movie that wins the Oscars. It's a specific kind of book that wins these prizes. So you really need to do your research and make sure that your book does fit. It isn't a matter of, you know, first of all, it's got to be, all of those things have to be right. You have to hit all of the submission details and things that they say they want. So yeah, and they want different things. So the Amazon Storyteller Award obviously is the big award in the indie space, £20,000 for the winner there, and that's very much about story. It's very, very story driven. It's a very different kind of book that's going to win Amazon Storyteller compared to, you know, the National Book Award in the US or whatever. It's not going to be the same kind of book. So a bit of awareness, in the same way that you need awareness as to where you position and place your book in the marketplace, you need a bit of awareness about what's good for your book.
I mean, both of us have obviously been on judging panels, and to me it has to, I mean, you mentioned submission format. I've been looking at all these short story things, and goodness me, the detail of the submission format is, you know, very, very detailed. So you have to be very clear, and for example, you can't put your name on the thing, and you have to put certain things in certain areas, and if you don't do that, then they just chuck you out immediately. So that's really important. But then also for me, in terms of reading a lot of books submitted for prizes, is it can't be book 17 in a series, because you're with that book. Yeah, because in genre fiction, that's what we have. You know, I'm about to write book 12 in a series, and look, to be honest, you're pleasing your existing readership with a book in a long series. You're not writing a book that you're aiming to necessarily win a prize with. And this is why I find this so fascinating. I think this might be wrong. I think a standalone book might have more chance of winning a prize in a genre than a one in a series. Literary fiction is often a standalone anyway, so you can't really compare it. But I was thinking, for example, about the Bram Stoker. A perfect example of the genre was Ararat by Christopher Golden, which won a few years ago. And I read this book, and every single thing about this book, I think, was perfect. in terms of being a perfect example of the genre, but yet still original. That originality, that's something different. It can't be the 79th psychological thriller with a female first person viewpoint, you know. So that's those, they may sound nebulous, but when I'm thinking about submitting a book to something like the Bram Stoker, you know, some of the books on my wall are standalone horror novels that I wouldn't write for my thriller series. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think, you know, if you think about the judge reading, particularly a judge who knows nothing about your work, and very often for prize, remember, everything will be stripped away except the title. So the title will be all that they have to go on. They won't know who the author is, and they won't know. And the more the book is a perfect little piece of thing in itself, the better chance it has of winning. It has to be a really pleasing experience to read that book. And if it's part of a series, it can work as a standalone within a series, but that's not the same thing as something that creates a complete world, beginning, end, over, nothing else to say kind of thing. And you want, as a judge, you want that feeling of overwhelming satisfaction at the end of the read. And you're right, the qualities that make a book stand out are nebulous, but you know them when you get them. You feel it. You really, it's very, very obvious. And, you know, I've judged a good few prizes now, and most often it's either unanimous or it's down to two. That people feel quite passionately and different, and that tends to be, it's very rarely in that everybody's divided up across the 5 or 6 that are on the short list. There's usually 1 or 2 clear winners, and you know it when you feel it.
I've only really done the sort of first tier judging, which is done in a lot of these big competitions, prizes, where you have hundreds, sometimes more than 1,000 books to assess, and then you pass them forward to judges like yourself who get the short list.
I only do short lists.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't do the big long reads. Oh no, I can't. I haven't got time.
Okay, well, I wanted to say about this though, because I'm really glad, and I would urge people to, if you're part of a genre organization, volunteer, because they always need people to do this first round judging, because it's such hard. Really. Yeah, it's such hard work. It's very hard work to assess hundreds of books in maybe 6 to 8 months. You know, it's really difficult, but you very much get to see the standards of what's going on in your genre, and you get to learn what your taste is like, what some of the, especially as a British woman, I find a lot of the time I'm the only Brit. And this is where taste comes in, and cultural taste is really interesting in these different things. So I think this is another thing, indies who belong to these organizations should volunteer to be part of the judging, and thus you will get to know what's going on, and thus we might have a better chance of winning more of them.
Knowledge is power. Absolutely. Yeah,
it is. But also on that, I would also encourage people, because I see a lot of traditionally published books that are not great. So it's not like, oh, we can't win because we're indie and they're traditional. That's not it at all.
Yeah, definitely not. Okay.
So any other things that we want to tell people? Oh, I guess we should also say, I mean, is there anything else that we should say about awards? Or
I think, you know why you're doing it. I think, no, it's not like your average goal as a publisher, where there's a clear kind of outcome and you know what you have to do, and if it's important to you, it's important to you, and that's a good enough reason to do it. But understand why it is important to you and what outcome you want. If it's just to have that prize winning, award winning badge or whatever on your sales page, fine. Or is there something more than that going on? So like everything, understand your goal, but understand that winning prize isn't an achievable goal in the same way as I will get to the end of this novel, I will publish this book. You have control there, and you are entering a lottery, and the vast I mean, 99.99% of the books won't win. So, it's in many ways it's out of your hands. So depending on how that makes you feel, that might make you feel, yes, it's a challenge, I really want to do it. Or it might make you feel, no, if it starts making you feel bad about yourself, then definitely stop.
Yes, but on the other hand, if you don't enter, you can never win. And also, I kind of see it as a creative craft challenge. Like I said, like there's this book that's in my head that I know a standalone horror novel is not going to sell me a ton of copies, but it might be something that I write from a craft perspective as a challenge to fit this different thing in, like the short story too. That's how I would encourage people to think about it, because look, if you enter a competition that doesn't cost too much money and it is a good competition and you don't win, you can still self-publish it. It's not like you're losing that book in any way. And maybe you'll make the shortlist, maybe you won't. But so I think that's why, like you said, determine why you're doing it, but also be strategic about what you want to enter. And also, like, just so don't enter a romance novel in a horror competition. And if it's hardcore sci-fi, then don't put it in a romance thing. And you really have to, or I wouldn't put a genre book in a literary competition. Like, you have to be honest and self-aware about your book too.
Definitely. But using it, as you say, to level up yourself in a way, to elevate your own craft is a really good reason. And another thing that people do it for is deadlines. So, I have to finish the book by such and such a date because I'm going to enter it in the competition. And even if it doesn't win, it got the book out of you. And that's a good enough reason to do it as well. So,
so we're definitely pros and cons in this episode, right?
Yes. It's even more than most things. I think it's a personal decision.
I've talked about my ambitions. Are you gonna planning on entering anything particular?
I'm actually working with Book Award Pro at the moment.
There we go.
Yeah, just putting a few out there, just seeing what happens, kind of thing. Well, I'm interested I knew we were doing this show, and I was interested just to see what they do and how they do things, but also interested in that whole world of the way in which it is kind of dividing off, and also in the books that are winning. So it's another way of seeing what books are coming to the top of those prizes and what they kind of share and stuff. So
cool. I'll just answer a quick question from Milena, who says, is it okay to ask, is Joanna using a standing desk? Yes, she is. I always podcast standing up. Orna, you're also standing up, aren't you?
I'm also standing. Yes,
we are standing. And this is part of the healthy author. When you've been sitting down at a desk for 25 years, having a standing desk is a good option, and it gets you your steps if you bob around a bit. So yes, I am. We both are. So yes, thank you for that. So next month, we are going to do something that we're pretty excited about, which is subscription models, because this is turning it into a much bigger deal than I think authors think. Authors think this is coming. This is either KU or this is coming, but yes, but it's also already here. So for ebooks, we're going to talk about the existing models for ebooks and audiobooks. We're going to talk about, the exclusive, the non-exclusive. We're going to talk about what might be coming further in the audiobook space. We're going to talk about libraries. We'll talk about micropayments and payments for subscription, and most importantly, why you don't need to be scared of subscription and what you can do to kind of level up any other income off the back of it. So this is something I'm very excited about and want more of, because consumers want it and we want to be where consumers are. So anything else on that, Orna?
Just everything you said, and you will probably hear a lot of doom and gloom about subscription, and that's not
from us.
Not from us, exactly. Not from us, and we will explain why. If that seems kind of crazy to you, we'll explain why. It's all, like, as usual, it's all about strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything you want to share what's coming up on Ally this month?
Well, we'd love to get your proposals in, and we'd particularly love if we have any good long-standing members there who would like to work locally, particularly in Canada, Australia, South Africa. New Zealand, places like that. If you would like to do some work, we're talking about a very small number of hours per quarter, one meeting per quarter, and a few hours a month given to Ally. We would be super grateful. We would love to kind of get that program going.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we'll see you next month. So happy writing.
And happy publishing. Bye-bye.